The original 2004 Star Wars Battlefront is a title many remember fondly. While you might have originally picked it up, either because of the franchise it's a part of, or because it just seemed like a novel thing to try at the time, surely if you're watching this video, it's because Battlefront 1 left an impression on you. And not without good reason to either. It is simply a fun game, and one that's still being enjoyed by plenty of people, even now 2 decades, a couple spin-offs, a sequel, and a whole franchise reboot later. And I want to make the case that the reason the original Battlefront has lasted so long isn't just because of the brand name it's attached to, or the story, or the nostalgia factor alone, but specifically because as a team-based shooter, it shows off some of the best map design in gaming, period. So please join me as I briefly break down what makes each of the original Star Wars Battlefront's maps so good. Today, I want to talk about what I think it's more than appropriate to call the original Battlefront's most intense map, Kashyyyk Islands. I maintain that what made the first Battlefront so popular and so enduring is how much variety of gameplay you got out of its 17 vanilla maps. Because all those different in-game locations represented more than just aesthetic changes. Every individual map's layout and size and what vehicles it might have all impacted what the gameplay on it was like. Even though you always had the same playable classes and weapons, you often got a vastly different gameplay experience from match to match. Some maps were decidedly faster paced, some were slower. Some maps allowed for big vehicle engagements, some were pure infantry. Some maps were relatively enclosed, and you were always kept close to the enemy, and on some maps, everyone was much more spread out. You got a bunch of different locations that all presented the player with fundamentally different ways to play, based off of Battlefront's core design and control scheme. And I think it's always helpful to look at what each map offers mechanically, and how its layout directly affects gameplay, if you're trying to get a handle on what makes a level in a game like this unique and enjoyable. To that end, I want to take a look at Kashyyyk Islands today, through the lens of understanding it as a relatively small map, and a completely outdoors and quite open one at that, but it's a map that, almost counterintuitively, is one of the most fast-paced, destructive and intense locations in the entire game. So I'd like to talk about the very subtle but deliberate design choices that made it this way. Let's start by just describing its basic layout first. This map may be called Islands, but I'd say it looks more like a lumpy estuary. You've got impassable water running around the boundary edge of the map, yes, but the landmass in between is essentially a small group of hills with a little stream running through it. Almost the entirety of the ground is covered in waist-high foliage, and there's tall clusters of bamboo scattered all over, breaking up some of the longer sight lines and providing a modicum of cover. There's not much in the way of real hard cover on most of the map, which actually isn't to say there isn't a fair amount of it, it's just practically all crammed into one relatively small section of the map's very centre. Right in the middle of the level is a fortified village. There's a bunch of freestanding hut-like structures and a number of strategically placed log redoubts, all positioned as if to protect the top of the centralmost hill here. And there's a bunch of stuff all really tightly packed into this zone in the middle of the map. For one thing, there's 3 whole proper command points up here, virtually within spitting distance of one another, which has to be the densest placement of them anywhere in the game. There's also, by my count, about 18 health and ammo dispensing droids sitting around the middle of the map up here by the village area. So, if you're up here, you'll definitely be well stocked up on supplies and within easy reach of some medical assistance at all times. There will also be 2 pilotable starfighters parked up here. Depending on the era you're playing in, their designs might change a bit, but there should always be a quick, lighter one and a slower one with heavier armour and firepower. I just want to note that they're up here for now, because I'll loop back to touch on the aerial combat on this map in a little bit. Before I get to that, I should first mention what little is left outside this tiny middle section. The very periphery of the map has 3 other command posts on it. These ones, however, are all spread out about as far away from one another as they possibly could be, all spaced equidistant around the edge of the gameplay area. In terms of map geometry, there's just a few more huts out here, and one small bridge covering part of the stream running through the level, which feels fairly redundant and unnecessary, seeing as the water below the bridge is shallow enough to walk through just fine, but it does at least look the part, and I suppose it makes the place look more realistic to the setting. There aren't any ground vehicles or even usable turrets on this map, however, but out here at one of the perimeter command posts will be another set of 2 starfighters to use. Now, what tends to end up happening in any match on this map is you invariably get a ring-shaped front line as the team that starts at the outer posts rushes towards the middle, and the team that started in the middle tries to hold their central little village. The fact that all 3 of those center command posts always start out owned by one side makes for a really, really dense fight once the other team rushes in, because you get practically every unit on the map all naturally squishing themselves into this single small area. And there's even more units running around here than on a normal map, because there's also always a 3rd faction here. The Wookiees, who are native to Kashyyyk, will spawn in endlessly in that village, and they'll help out either the Republic or Rebel Alliance side, depending on what factions are present. Incidentally, this is perhaps the only instance in the game, save for maybe the other Kashyyyk map, where there's a native faction both solely helping out one team and actually being a decent fighting force. On top of that, all those starfighters I mentioned earlier will more often than not just start strafing and bombing the middle of the map within about 30 seconds of the start of the round, which again will likely be the most densely populated section of a Battlefront map you'll ever see. These flying vehicles can go on absolute killing sprees here. I think it's a little bit surprising that they would give you such powerful vehicles on a map where everyone is so close together, but I suppose, from the perspective of the game designers, you do have the overhead room available, you might as well use it. Although, I will point out, they chose not to add any dedicated anti-aircraft weapons anywhere in here. There's nothing like the big AA gun turrets from Bespin platforms, for example. But it's not like Battlefront 1 in particular was always super focused on being completely balanced. All this means that matches played here on Kashyyyk Islands do tend to be among the most intense and quickest paced of any in the game. At the very least, though, I find that in the relatively brief time you'll be in a round here, you will probably have a fun time. It's exciting, and I think it's good that a game like this, on the whole, has a mixture of big maps that last longer and become entrenched battles, and some maps that are these fast, frenetic affairs. And it's not like you'll be suffering for want of different perfectly viable ways to play here either. Even though it's intense, the game doesn't lock you out of being able to engage with any of the core mechanics of Battlefront here. No matter what faction you're playing as, the basic soldier class and their trusty blaster rifle is likely going to remain the backbone of your force. As one of these guys, you're going to be able to jump right into the fight over those central command posts. Take a few shots, give a few back. And, as you'll soon learn, you can get a lot out of grenade spam on this map. The middle village is so small and there's so many ammo pickups around that even if you're finding it hard to aim well with all the murky foliage around, you can always try just repeatedly mashing that right click towards groups of the enemy. Alternatively, I always enjoy going sniper here and trying my best to rack up easy headshots by firing into the big, undifferentiated massive units in the center and hoping for the best. Or, go even simpler. Pick one of the heavy demolitions troopers and have fun with your rocket launcher. It's not just an area denial tool either. If the flying vehicles are giving you grief, lock onto the starfighters overhead with it and make it your mission to take them down yourself. And of course, if you're really looking for a mega mondo kill count, try to get to your team's bombers first and spend the round doing those strafing runs. You could probably take out dozens of the enemy team very easily if you're lucky. But no matter what playstyle you opt for, you'll notice it will probably be some of the most fast-paced, quick turnover gameplay you'll see anywhere in Battlefront. Now, this map and its uniquely intense playstyle might not be everyone's cup of tea, but as I alluded to earlier, I think the biggest strength of Battlefront 1 is how much variety of gameplay it has. It's great that pretty much every map in the game has its own identity beyond just being aesthetic reskins of all the same gameplay. That's probably why this game has remained as popular as it has for as long as it has in the first place. And that said, if you might like to hear me break down what makes so many other Battlefront 1 maps so good, there will be a Battlefront map analysis playlist linked at the top of the description, or you can subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next video. Either way, goodbye for now, and have a lovely day.